first I want to thank you. I know Saturday is a work day, and I know you love your job, so it's not really work, but it is a work day. You're giving me some time on a Saturday, which I appreciate. And secondly, welcome to episode 7 of URI Just Getting Started. I've met you. Do you recall when we first met? I know you've met so many people, but I'm going to remind you a little bit. Coach Cox was giving me a tour. I had just interviewed him about Fats Russell or something. Yep. And it was right before the Davidson game. And, like you are, you're always just so great with everybody. And you told me one thing, I'm going to remind you about that. You said, if we win, I'm going to fly you in every single game for the rest of the season. I wasn't sure how you were going to take that, but I'm glad you're smiling. But there is a loophole, so I'm going to let you get out of this. I went to the Davidson finals. Jeff Dowden just missed a shot.
Heartbreaker.
And I was there, so I think that negates your first offer. So I'm going to let you go for that.
Fair enough. Okay.
Also, congratulations on your daughter. How did that go? The wedding go?
Oh, the wedding was one of the most special days of my life. As a dad, and very emotional, but to be able to give my daughter away to a wonderful young man in a wedding that was so beautiful, it was special, and puts a lot of things in perspective. It reminds me just how important family is, and being able to spend time is pretty amazing. So it's thanks for asking. It was wonderful.
Oh, sure. I'm going to take a guess. You had the ceremony at Meade Stadium?
No, we actually didn't. We had the ceremony at Christ the King Church right at the top of campus. Okay. And the reception was at a friend's home, right, also near the top of campus, in their big front yard on Potter Lane in Kingston. And it was a beautiful, beautiful location and a beautiful day.
A little disappointed. I know how much work that is one of your babies.
That's right. That's right.
I just want to start by I'm going to define you partially. I don't like to define people, but I do think overall that you're very unique as an athletic director. And you've heard the term players coach. Now I'm going to give you a little name here. You're a players athletic director.
Thank you.
And one of the reasons last episode, we had a good friend of yours on, Tammi Reiss, and we're going to hit a video in a second with her talking about you, but she told me something that I was just remarkable, that every single one of the players, and when you go in the locker room, their first and last name. And is that, how do you do that, first of all? That's hard.
Well, thank you for that categorization. I mean, that's an honor. I mean, we're here for our student athletes, and that's a true joy. The greatest joy of my job is to be able to interact with these amazing kids. And do I know every name and first last name? If I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know every single one. I try, and will certainly want to put myself out there where I can know as many as I possibly can and interact with as many as I can. And I want them to know who I am, not because I need them to know who I am. I need them to know that we're here to serve them. We're here to support them. And I want them to feel comfortable coming by my office or seeing me in the hallway and let me know how they're doing, and let me know how we can be better. And so, people will ask me a lot of times. I'll get interviewed for different things, and people say, what's the best part of your job? And I say, it's always, I know it's cliche, but the best part of my job by far is interacting with our student athletes, without exception. Even during the tough times, even during, a discipline issue or a personal issue that students may be going through, because we do talk about family all the time. We try to be a family here, and as with any family, not everything goes perfectly all the time. And but that doesn't mean that we're not always together. Doesn't mean we don't ever stop caring for each other. And so that really is the motivating factor into coming to work every day and really enjoying what I do.
Well, this is an interactive show, and I'm going to put on a little video now, a surprise for you. All right. I also want to make sure I get the copyright on the players athletic director, because I think it's
thank you.
Let's go over and see who we have here as a video. Look who we have. Miss Tammi Reiss. She's going to say some things about you. And don't worry, they're all good.
Thorr Bjorn is an AD, and I've had a lot of ADs as assistant coaches. I've never had one as a head coach, obviously, because this is my first job, but I study people as well. And I get a vibe from people. Thorr is a people person AD, not just a businessman, not just a sports lover. Thorr Bjorn knows every one of our student athletes' names. He can go up to them. He talks to them. He fist bumps them. We at least text or talk every maybe 2 days, sometimes more. And to have that kind of relationship with someone, you're invested, you're vested. And it feels, as a head coach, it feels so good to have an AD that knows what's going on in your program, that isn't lost, that is vested in your program. And I say this all the time. I could never work with someone that didn't know what was going on in my program, that didn't know my student athletes, that didn't care.
Well, she said a lot there, and you've had a lot to say about her. I did want to go to something that I think very few people know, and that's the whole point of this show. We could talk about other issues, and I know all the trouble that you had with COVID, and you took it personally, and you rose to the occasion. But how was Tammy hired? There's an urban legend that your assistant athletic director plopped over an application on your desk. Is that true? Am I off a little? Or
You are 100% right. Shane Donaldson came into my office. Shane's our assistant athletic director for media relations and was part of the search with me. When we do a search for these types of positions, I really go full steam and sort of shut my door and have a very close group that I work with as we're going through this process. And it becomes all encompassing, all consuming. And I'll never forget it. I was sitting right here at my desk, and Shane walked in, took a piece of paper. It was actually her bio, just like this, right on my desk. This is who we need to get. And I was reading Tammy's bio, and he had her cell phone number on there. And that afternoon, I was driving up to Providence to watch our softball team play at Providence College, and I reached out to Tammy on the cell, and we talked for probably a good 45 minutes. And we hadn't met each other before and didn't know each other. You know, obviously I knew she was a great player and had been, doing so many amazing things throughout her life. But that conversation was incredible. And I tell this all the time, because to me, this was a defining moment in that conversation. It was right near the end. Tammy said to me, "Thorr, you haven't asked me my strengths and weaknesses." And I remember what I said to her, which was, "Hey, coach, this is just an initial conversation. I'm sure when we get time to talk further, we can have those types of discussions." And she said, "Well, no, I'd rather tell you now. I've talked about my strengths, but my weaknesses are that I've never been a head coach." And I said to her, "Well, prior to coming to Rhode Island, I'd never been a full-time AD before. So, everybody has to get a first chance." And she said, "No, I have to tell you why. I wasn't a head coach because I wasn't ready." And for me, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, wow, here's a person that has such incredible self-awareness that they weren't ready. Then she said, "For the last 2 years, I've been thinking like a head coach. I've been trying to think about what would I do in every particular situation. If I was the head coach, how would I coach this situation? How would I recruit this kid? What would I do in terms of facility upgrades? How would I interact with other people?" And and I'm not just saying this, I literally get the chills every time I think about that, because I've never heard it said before. I've never heard it said since. I think it just shows the quality of character of somebody to have that level of self-awareness. I wasn't ready. I'm ready now. It is amazing. And I probably told that story 100 times. I will continue to tell it, because for young coaches or young administrators that want to get up in this profession, we all need to know that. We're never always ready. And then when we ultimately get our shot, we'll take advantage of it. But, to be able to say what she said with that level of self-confidence and self-awareness was powerful to me.
now let me ask you a question. Was that conversation, that statement, and that self-awareness, as you say, was that the turning point where you said, "I'm going to push the button and hire Tammi Reiss"? Or
It was actually, well, it certainly was oh wow moment. Here's a woman that's really, you know, at the top of my list. But that was the first conversation with any candidate at the time, and I think literally that may have been a day after the opening was available, you know, was made, et cetera. So that was really early on. But yeah, from that point, from that conversation, my whole mindset was focusing on Tammy. I actually went out to Syracuse to have a one-on-one. We had breakfast just to talk and get to know each other better. And you know, that was a really great, just a couple hours just to have a conversation. And it was terrific. And everything that I had thought about her certainly came through when we met in person.
Well, another remarkable part of this story about hiring her, getting back to that with Shane, sorry. See, I'm not so good about remembering names. Take a lesson from you. But I've worked for many bosses, and I've never had when I've had a good idea, it's always seems to be lost, and the credit goes to the boss. So the fact that you attribute a lot of that to Shane, I think is just a rare thing for bosses, not just in sports, but in the business world. So I think you should be acknowledged for that. And it's a great story anyway.
Well, thank you. And you know, it's I have a great team that I work with, great colleagues and partners. And again, I know people are supposed to say this. I just really mean it. I mean, I love coming to work every day because of the people I work with. And you know, we've really developed a good team, a good cohesive unit that supports each other, gets along well together. You know, we try to break up any divide between administration and coaches and vice versa, and really try to and student athletes, and try to pull it all together as, you know, one unit, one nucleus of family. And that's been great.
Well, let's go, not for further ado, let's go to the deck and get to know Thorr Bjorn even more in front of you here. There's a lot of great things about 11th athletic director, but what I found, another nugget in Thor's excellent career, you worked in the ticketing department of a dynasty, 1990 to 1996 or so. Calipari, Marcus Camby, 5 championships, maybe ranked 2, I think, if I remember correctly. Tell me about that. That must be something that you last the rest of your life.
I'll tell you, you know, I'm smiling because it brings back incredible memories. What Cal and those teams, they were actually ranked #1 in the country for quite a bit. #1 going into that 1996 NCAA championship, where we ended up losing to Kentucky in the Final Four. But you know, when I think about those years, as a tickets and game operations director, I graduated from UMass in '90, and I went to UConn for an internship in their business office, and was fortunate enough to get invited back to interview for this ticket and game ops position that was only going to be an interim. The person that was in that role was on sick leave. And I came back and I was offered the position. And I mean, I started, it was right before Thanksgiving. I had no idea about game operations. I had no idea about tickets, but I sort of learned on the fly. And that first year, again, all hard tickets. I laugh at it now. It's all hard tickets now. People know you go buy a ticket, everything's computerized, everything's, you know, not back then. It was a stack of tickets on the wall, and we were playing in the cage, and the team was doing great. So it was getting crazy. You know, that first year we went to the NIT Final Four, and just that whole run and learning so many different things was incredible. And I was very fortunate where they offered me the job full-time that May. And you know, we were in the cage right up through the transition into the Mullen Center. And you know, in that role, working closely, especially with a really good friend who was the fundraiser, John Natardi. He and I did the seating going from the cage to the Mullen Center. That was the most miserable experience of probably my career. It was awful. Maybe it wasn't the most miserable, but it was pretty difficult. And I think back and smile. I think back to those times, and I learned a ton. I learned how to deal with people. Some really crazy stories and some fun stories. I still remember, I won't say exactly what they said, but in the Curry Hicks cage, which was like Keeney Gym, just a small 4,000 seat place, we're playing, I think, Temple. We may be the #1 team in the country, certainly a top 10 team. And there was probably 4,000 or 5,000 students outside that couldn't get in. There was only room for 1,300 of them. So in unison, they're yelling. The ones by the door are banging on the door, and the rest are yelling, "Thorr, Thorr, Thorr, open the blanking door."
Oh
And
my! Wow.
it was a riot. And then John Calipari goes onto the fire escape and gets on a bullhorn and says, "Thanks for coming. We're sold out, but I promise you, Thorr will get you tickets for the next game." So it wasn't that wasn't the next game coming up was Temple, I think. And so he called me in the next morning and said, "Hey, come down here." He said, "Hey, I promised all these kids tickets to the next game." I said, "Coach, how are we going to do that? There were thousands of them out there. And how do you know who they are?" He goes, "That's for you to figure out. Just go figure it out." And he and I talked last year, and I reminded him of that story. And he said, "Yeah, I still do the same thing today." But it was fun.
That's going to stay with me the rest of the day. That I've never heard that story before from you. So this is your timeline. And I'm going to narrow it down to this area over here, 2002-ish. I think you had an aha moment there. And the reason why I'm saying that is you left temporarily UMass and you took a corporate job with resorts management. And then after that, you came back and a lot of good things happened when you came back. One of them, you were interim athletic director. Another was just the second guy for many years. But what do you think about that statement? Did you have an aha moment when you decided to leave UMass for the first time and go into the corporate world?
I did, and I've told this. I left after 9 years. I loved it there. I worked for a wonderful guy named Bob Markham, who's still a great friend and mentor. But I was working a ton in those roles. My wife was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids under the age of 3. And I was just thinking I needed to go find a position where I can make some decent money, because it's hard when you start at $25,000 a year, it's hard to work your way up. And so, yeah, I went into corporate business up in Portland, Maine. I loved it. It was really cool. But I missed college athletics a lot. And then Ian McCaw, who is now the AD at Liberty, prior to that was at Baylor. He was the athletic director at UMass, and he called me up, and I'd known him for a bit. And he said, "Hey, we'd like you to come back. Here's the role, associate AD for external affairs, overseeing really the external operation. What do you think?" And I said, "You know what? I'm ready." Now, it was hard because we loved living in Maine, but it was a great opportunity to go back. And after about 3 months, Ian left to take the Baylor job, and that's when I was fortunate enough to become the interim athletic director. And something that I remember Chancellor Lombardi, who offered me that opportunity, said to me, he goes, "You can either be the interim or you can be a candidate. I'm not letting you be both." Wow. And that was a really powerful thing for me to think about, because again, like Tammy, I wasn't ready to be the athletic director, although I thought I probably was. So I said to him, "You know what? I'd rather have the experience. I'd rather, sit in the chair and see how I can see what I can learn." And the reason why he didn't let me be both is if I wasn't going to get it, he didn't want the new person to come in and feel very awkward about me in that, in the previous role. So when John McCutcheon was hired, he, again, another great mentor, embraced me and elevated my position to his number 2. And we made a great team together. And so, yeah, those were some really important times in my career. That 2003 to 2007 run, we had some great success at UMass, and it was a really cool experience.
Just your body of work. It's really a good time to be an athletic director at URI right now, between women's basketball and football. I just, how are you doing this year? Are you having a great time?
I am. I think again, it's been a really fun fall. All of our sports teams are great. Men's basketball and what Dave Cox has done and been, he's such a joy to work with, and his team has been really fun to get to know this year, especially as we're coming out of COVID. I was telling a couple of Tammy's players yesterday, Manu and MP, I'm like, I missed getting to know them last year, because really trying to separate and, not impact their ability to compete. And this year's been a lot more fun. But whether it's our men's, women's soccer programs, our volleyball program under Angela Gu as a new coach, it's been a blast. It's been really fun. Our football team and what they're doing with Jim Fleming, 5-1, that's been really fun. So yeah, it's been a really good time to be part of URI, but it also, I will say, it goes back to, you know, a great staff that I work with. I love the people I work with. Marc Palange, our new president that just started August 1st. He's been amazing to work with, and again, just a short period of time. Just a real positive outlook on everything, and not only within athletics, but the university. So this is a special place, and you know, I think it's with great pride that we all really want to work hard and bring great success to our programs. That's for sure.
Well, you mentioned the president, and you've probably heard of Keeney Blue, the bulletin board. It's a great place to be, and sometimes it's not such a great place to be, but they're the most knowledgeable fans, and they were very happy with. Of course, they're happy with you and your attention to the basketball team. And this is a basketball show, but they were worried that the new president wasn't going to be like David Dooley. And what should we expect? Is he someone who's going to embrace the basketball team, or more academics?
Well, I think he'll do both. No, he will absolutely embrace our basketball programs. He understands that, you know, we need to invest in our basketball teams to be at the highest level in the A10, to put us in the best position to earn those at-large bids to the NCAA tournament. He absolutely gets it. He also is, again, incredibly humble and brilliant of a man, and a very great leader. But he also is humble enough to know to ask, well, maybe there's things he's not aware of. And so to be able to have that relationship and the ability to listen and allow me to share my thoughts. You know, he is absolutely a wonderful person to work with. And he really has embraced athletics. He's been to so many games already this fall. I know he's going to be at every basketball game he could possibly be at. Our coaches already know him. You know, he's been terrific. He and I work out actually 3 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 in the morning in our varsity weight room. So he's actually gotten to know our golfers who are in there. The women's basketball team was in there, football who comes in there on Friday mornings when we're finishing up. And, you know, that's been fun. It's been fun for the students to get to know him, and for him to get to know them and see them, you know, in their day-to-day activities.
I'm in the way here. So you're the players athletic director. Look at this picture. This speaks volumes. You and Cyril, you look like your family. Like he's
that's Cyril and I was laughing. I was actually on my tiptoes, and he was still towering over me. But Cyril is a wonderful young man who's doing great professionally now, but no, getting to know those folks, men and women, student athletes, is I never have anything but a smile on my face. That's for sure.
Yeah. He's doing pretty well in Sweden, I believe. He was
playing. Yeah, he is. I told him, I said, he's, he could take my name over there, and it's in the homeland of the Swedish side of my family. So. Oh,
really?
Yeah.
That's good. You're a process-oriented guy, from what I gather. And Tammy, from the last interview, is a process-oriented person as well. Tell me about your methodology in raising money.
Sure. It's funny. When I first got here, I learned very quickly. We actually raised and received a gift from an amazing family for a baseball field, artificial surface of baseball. That was my first year. It ended up being a $1.3 million gift. And as we were talking through that, I sort of came up with a term that made sense to me when the family had asked me, hey, do you think we can get other people behind this initiative? And what I said to them was, no, if this is something that you want to do, their son was playing baseball for us. I said, we really need you to step up and do it, because we can't raise the money for this project at the same time we were trying to raise money for the Ryan Family Student Athlete Development Center. That was our priority. This was something that was donor specific, program specific. And I said, we can't do it with a bake sale. We've got to do it by getting big checks. And that family wrote a check for the entire project and allowed us to move forward. And as we get into the Ryan Family Student Athlete Complex, or the Turf and Lights at Meade Stadium, or most recently the basketball practice facility, those are big dollar amounts in which athletics raised almost all of it, not all of it. Like in the Turf and Lights, Student Affairs gave $1 million of the $4 million, so that because they're going to allow other students to be able to have access to that. It was great. But in talking to everybody, it's like, look, we don't need a committee. We just need people that are willing to write a check and then come with us to tell a story. And so when you talk about process driven, yeah, it's like I've learned, the first investments of anything we do is to develop the architectural engineering work to get a real sense of what things are going to cost. That's the first and foremost thing that we need people to invest in. Once they do that, now we have a dollar amount we can go towards, and we spend all our time trying to raise those funds to do those things. I love raising money, no, and it's not something everybody likes to do. And it's not that I'd like to just go take people's money from them. I like to tell the story of the cool things that we're doing. And what's really great about URI is there is a real passion for their school, for our alums or their families to get behind certain initiatives. And I think every one of the ones that we're focusing on are very strategic. They make sense. People understand, why are you trying to renovate West Gym and turn it into a practice facility? Or why did you take East Gym and turn it into a state-of-the-art weight room? Well, here's why. Here's our focus. Here's how it's going to benefit our student athletes. And this is what our competitors are doing. So people understand that, and they've embraced it. And so I think raising money is probably again, next to working with student athletes, is probably the next most enjoyable thing that I do, because it gives me a chance to go out and talk to people and see people, and then, fill them in on what we're doing, and then thank them for their support. But, it kind of goes back to what you were asking me before when you brought up about Shane. We need to listen. Part of raising money is you have to listen. Where are people at? What are they thinking about? What's important to them? Yeah, we have a vision and we have our own thoughts, but we have to listen. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, well, I guess the negative side is you get a pie in your face.
That was a positive. Although I was telling Tammy yesterday, I smelled whipped cream in my nose for 3 days.
Oh, wow. Don't worry, there isn't any video on that. But if I didn't ask this question, I would be lynched by, I mentioned Keeney Blue. And I want to know anyway, what is the status? If you could give us a little, I'm not asking for like top secret information.
Oh, no, I'll tell you everything. For the practice facility?
Yes.
Yeah, great. We have raised just about 7.2 of the 7.9 needed. But that said, we're moving forward. So we've hired Populous to do the design. They're the ones that designed the Ryan Center. They are just about done with their design work, and that will be going out to bid. They're putting together the construction documents now. That'll end up going out to bid probably in the next month and a half, 2 months. It just takes time. It's not that there's a holdup. It's just a time. So that goes on the street, and we expect people to start bidding on that during the spring semester. And we're certainly hoping to start construction May or June of this coming year. And it'll take about a year to do it, give or take. And so, yeah, we're thrilled. We're very excited. So we're, sometime in the spring of, 2023, probably late spring, we'll be in it and up and running. And, like I said, we still have to raise probably about $700,000 or $800,000, but we're confident we'll get there. We're confident we'll get there hopefully in the next 2 months. We have not had a lot of donors behind this project. We've probably just had about 8 or 9, 10 maybe that have contributed, the 7.2 million so far. Remember what I was saying, sort of take away the bake sale mentality and go get people that can really help at a high level, so you can move forward and not create frustration by having things take so long. So yeah, I'm very confident. And, if we have to raise another $200,000-300,000 by the $5,000 and $10,000 gifts, which are really important and significant, we'll do that. But what we'd rather do is have those donations go into our operating funds, just so that we can help run the programs even better than we currently do.
Well, Thorr, I'd love to write you a check for 300,000, but I'm about 299,000 short. But no, this is very exciting about that. I wanted to also bring up, I heard you mention about charter flights. Is that something coming up in the horizon? I know
we're chartering to a lot of, we charter a lot now, both on the men's and women's side. The women's side, we're going to be chartering more because of the gift that we just received, $125,000 per year gift for a year for 2 years.
Congratulations, by the way.
Excuse me?
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, great tribute to Tammy. Charlie Spallion, who made that gift, is a very good friend and someone that has really gotten behind what Tammy's all about. And so, we knew that we obviously have to do that to provide our women's team the best chance to be successful and recruit at a high level. Charlie, certainly, that'll cover probably 2 charters alone, maybe 3, which is great. And then we'll come up with the other money to do the same thing. On the men's side, we're chartering a lot already as well, probably 6 or 7 times a year.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and we have to keep doing that. We got to get to that point where we're probably chartering all the time. If we're going from, to Philly further out, a lot of times you can bust to Philly, in 4.5 hours. So it's not that big a deal, but anytime you can do stuff like that, it's important. And it shows from a recruiting perspective that, hey, we're committed. We're ready to do this. And that's a matter of, external support. The university supports us incredibly well. I don't ever let anybody say that the university doesn't support us. They support us incredibly well. There's times that we've had to ask for help and the university has stepped up, and there's times we've asked for help from donors and they've stepped up. So I think we're in a really good, solid place, but we can't stop. It's like you said, what's next? It's the next thing. We got to keep moving. Once we accomplish this practice facility, what's next? We can sit back and enjoy it for maybe 2 weeks, and then we got to find it.
I thought it was a month.
Maybe a month, maybe a month.
Okay. I know what you're saying, and those are your words. This is a basketball program, but I would be remiss not to at least get in a little bit about the football. How did this happen, this turnaround? They were like 2-10 only 2-3 years ago. What was did you just put more money in the program, or?
No, it takes time, and I've got to start with, even back prior to Jim Fleming being hired, if you go back and look at, probably 2011, 2012, somewhere in that time frame, there were some programs in the Northeast that decided to drop football. At that point, I made the recommendation and decision to maybe switch leagues, go into the Northeast Conference rather than the CAA. Shortly thereafter, the CAA added Stony Brook, they added Albany to the league, and so that didn't make it made the decision harder. And so we stayed, and that was like a start and stop in your car. That creates some real challenge for, at the time, Joe Trainer, who worked his way through it. And then we hired Jim Fleming similarly, but it's hard. And we're competing in a lot of ways, like the SEC of one FCS football. So it's a challenge. So, I believe in Coach Fleming. I believe in the players and his staff. We've made some significant investments, and probably the biggest thing is the turf and lights at Meade Stadium. That really came from 2 $1 million gifts, and then a number of folks that came up and helped us raise that remaining million that was needed, plus the Division of Student Affairs. So what that did was say, football's not going away. We had heard from numerous recruits over the years that it was always being recruited against us, that football was going to be dropped at Rhode Island. It's not important. It's not important. But making that $4 million investment paid off, because we got the chance to tell recruits, you come here, the program's not going to go anywhere. We're here to stay, and we're ready to go compete for championships. And it's hard. So I go back to that 2-10 year. It's in a lot of ways, it's, especially early on, it's not that much different than the 5-1 year now. It's just that the games that we lost that year are games that we're winning this year. They were close games, overtime games, last minute drives, last second, plays. It's a fragile sport. And so, right now, I think because of some great leadership from the staff and leadership from some of the upperclassmen, we're in a good position. We got a big game today, playing Villanova this Saturday afternoon, and they're, I think, a top 5 team in the country, and they were one of our 2 wins last year in the shortened season with COVID. So I know they're not going to be looking past us, and our guys, after a tough one last week against Townson, will be excited about this one. So it's important and it's fun, and as a former player in this league,
I forgot to mention that.
I think football is a great sport, and it's something that people can really get excited about, but we have to be successful, and we have to put our program in position to be successful. And that takes funding for sure.
Now, this is just out of curiosity. How did you get that plane for the last game?
Well, it wasn't me. That was all Jim Fleming. And so, what happened was, we were going to Townson, and the plan was to bus to Townson and charter home so that we could get back after a game quickly and not have the guys on a 6 or 7 and 8 hour bus ride after a game. And so on Monday, Columbus Day, we made the decision to find a plane and charter down, and Jim had done a great job with the Day of Giving event. And so he felt like he had some funds to do it. So we were moving forward. And then on Wednesday, we found out that because of some challenges with the airlines, we lost our flight crew. So Jim ended up reaching out to a dad of one of our players who works for the Kraft group and said, hey, I know it's a long shot, but would Mr. Kraft ever think about leasing his plane to us? We don't have, probably it's not the full amount, but we have some money we can put towards it that we were going to put towards another charter. And the dad said, you know what, I'm with Mr. Kraft right now, let's ask him.
Wow.
And Mr. Kraft stepped up right then and said, yep, it's yours, we'll take care of it, we'll get you down there. And what a cool experience. And again, that was all connected to the Kraft group. And because we really have to be careful. It's really it sounds funny, but you're not allowed to accept gifts from the Patriots as a professional organization under NCAA rules.
Oh,
but
really?
Because the plane is under Bob Kraft, under the Kraft group, it's just we can accept that gift in kind from him, and we're so grateful.
What a story. I'm so glad I asked you that question. We're talking about Mead renovation. I'm thinking that's your baby. I saw you tweeting it with the drone. So you're very proud of that. And then there's the Hurley era. And the point I have with this is I noticed every year that a certain time of the year you would renegotiate Hurley's contract and he was up till like 2027. You use some strategies to keep him for 6 years. That's a very remarkable thing to do. And it's overlooked. How did you keep Coach Hurley? Maybe it was going to be 7. He stopped his decision. I know that.
It's communication. It's honest, transparent communication between my role and our head coach's roles, and making sure that we trust each other. I understand where a coach is coming from. They understand where I'm coming from. I think I've gotten better in that regard over the years. Sometimes you have to have hard conversations. Sometimes you have to have really good conversations. Those are easier. But at the end of the day, it's really being sort of partners in all this, and building that level of trust and friendship. Sometimes, people will say, how can you be friends with a coach if you ever have to make a change? And if you ever have to go in the unfortunate, category of making a change, that shouldn't hopefully never be a surprise. It should never be personal. It should always be, transparent conversation. But like I said, on the other side, that's more fun is saying, hey, what can we do to help you, help build your program? What do you need to be successful? Having someone like Dan or Dave Cox or Tammy, Jim Fleming, where they know our certain challenges, they'll ask hard questions, they'll push as hard as they can push. And they also have to know that I'm going to try to provide them what they need by working with folks on campus or externally. I remember we hired a guy named Darren Rizzi my first year here as our football coach. Darren is now a long time, been in the NFL for probably 13 years, but just a terrific guy. And I remember during the press conference, I was 40 years old, and he said, I'm committed to a partnership with Thorr Bjorn. And that scared me. I'll admit it. I said, oh my gosh, he's, wow, I think I'm being set up. No, you're being held accountable, just like he's being held accountable. You got to be like this with your coaches. And doesn't mean that you always have to agree. Doesn't mean that you don't get frustrated once in a while, either way. But if you're not in partnership and in the trenches with the coaching staff, then they're not going to trust you that you've got their best interest at heart. Again, I'm not saying that every coach will agree with every decision I've made. That would be naive, but I hope that they know that I'm doing everything I can, or our staff's doing everything we can to help them be successful. And that's why I think, Dan stayed as long as he did and had the success that he had.
And I do remember you saying in another podcast that when the time comes when you do have to, unfortunately, hire a coach, it's not really firing, resigning, whatever you call it. It's not just his performance or her performance. It's the whole athletic department who has to take responsibility, including starting with you.
Starting with me. When there's a change because of lack of success, it absolutely has to start with me. I believe that. That's not being a martyr. That's just being, what this is all about. And And any quote unquote failure, has to start with leadership. And so again, I don't take those decisions lightly. Those are hard decisions and hard conversations, but there also has to be some serious reflection as to what we could have done better to help that person be more successful. And, but then also part of the job is to have those hard conversations and make changes when we think it's needed. But it's certainly, I remember a good friend, that same gentleman, Bob Markham, told me once, if you ever get to the point where you enjoy that part of your job, it's time for you to get out.
I want to get this final discussion in about retiring players' numbers. And I have a video here to share with you that Kenny Green was the first guest. He's just a phenomenal man. And he ended the show with this statement here. I'm going to play the video for you, and then
Great.
get your thoughts on. If I could endorse a coach for big men, it's Kenny Green.
Yeah,
I might be a little partial, but here we go.
All I want is for the school to retire some of these guys' numbers. I think it's needed. I think it's going to benefit the program. And the only reason I say that is when you bring a recruit in and that recruit has been to other schools, maybe big schools, and they look up at the rafters and they see 3 jerseys retired. I said, any kid's going to say to himself, nobody else went to school here? No other player went to school here that they can retire their numbers? So I think that's something that's needed for this program and for the school. And I think when that's done, and it sounds really small, but when it's done, I think our chances of getting high profile players coming out of high school is going to be a step forward.
So what he said there was pretty powerful. And I know you've been quoted and you're not afraid to talk about this. You have some ideas about it too.
Oh, I think, yeah, we need to do that. We need to retire. We have some great players that have earned that right. I'm probably to avoid, I don't want to get people nervous and talk about confusion, but a lot of places don't necessarily retire numbers. They retire names, and recognition as like the most highly recognized folks should be up in those rafters. And I agree with that. That's not a Thorr Bjorn decision, because now let me be clear what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to come up with the right way of determining who gets up there. And I don't have that right. I haven't earned that right to be able to say, here's who I think should be up there. Because if I'm the player whose name's up there and 1 or 2 people have made that decision, that doesn't mean or provide the authenticity that's required to earn a spot up there. So we've talked about things like, is it the Hall of Fame committee? Is that big enough? Is that important enough of a group to do this? Because this is the ultimate. When your name is in a rafter, that's the ultimate. You've already been in the Hall of Fame. You've already proven that you're, one of the best at your sport. But what makes it so powerful that you can feel so good that your community said you're worthy of having your name up in that rafter? And I'm still struggling with that. I'll admit it. I will raise my hand and say, and maybe that's my own philosophy on that type of thing. But we've reached out to other schools. We're trying to figure out what other people are doing. I know during my time at UMass, it was really more of the athletic, the Hall of Fame committee that made those decisions. And maybe that's what we should do. And we can work on a process for that. But Kenny is 1000% right. And, but what's the nomination process? What is then the selection process? Is it, sort of en masse that we just open it up to the URI community? Is it small? And we just say, hey, maybe it's former players that get a vote. Who can say, or who has earned that right to say that, pick your favorite player deserves to be up in that rafter? Because we have a lot of men and women that have earned that right. And so I know that sounds like maybe I'm copping out. It's not. It really is something that means so much to me that I don't want to mess it up. I want to do it right. And we don't need to, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to be reminded by hearing from amazing people like Kenny to say, hey, let's not let this get on the back burner. I know we need to do it. And I know that I need to, by having conversations like this, need to get it back and to say, all right, folks, how are we doing this? Who's the first one that's going in next after all these years? Because it's not 10, there's not 5 folks that are going up there at once. This is going to be special, and it's going to be special every time we do it, to have those folks recognized as the pinnacle of their athletic career at the University of Rhode Island. It means so much to me to do it right. I can't fail in that regard, and I've just got to make sure we figure it out. And when we do it, we still will face criticism. I don't care about that. I'm fine with that. Someone's going to say so-and-so should be in before someone else. That's fine. That happens. That's part of the job. But as long as I know that we've done everything we can to protect that, and then protect the process for the future, for the next group of 1 or 2 or 3 people, whenever that time comes for them to be up in those rafters. And it's not just basketball, it's every sport. It's not just one sport, it's every sport. So we got work to do. But I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad Kenny brought it up. He shared it with me before. I know it's really important.
Can I squeeze one more question in?
Yeah.
Your time here. People have asked me, you can't ask this question, but you're a very honest person. What do you think about the PC situation last year? And I know your hands are tied a little bit being where you are, and you're a businessman, but I'm glad we're playing this year. But, I felt like the people of the state who were suffering from COVID were the real losers, in my opinion. I just wanted to, whatever you could say on that. If not, that's fine too.
No, I'm happy to say I will never say a bad word about Bob Driscoll, the athletic director of PC. Bob is a very, very close friend of mine. He's a mentor, someone that I have talked to about some of the most personal, challenging, professional things that I've gone through. We talked through that decision. I was disappointed, not in him, not in Coach Cooley, just in what happened. That we weren't able to play. But I'm thrilled that we'll be able to play again. I want to beat Providence College, probably just like I want to beat UMass, because you want to beat your rivals, you want to beat your friends. But I hold no ill will towards anybody up there. We had some very transparent, open dialogue, friendship dialogue, because that's the relationships that we have. But yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't bummed out. Of course I was. But I will not blame anybody. I will not blame anybody at Providence. And like I said, Bob is a very, very close friend, and someone that I admire and respect. And if we, if and when we ever have personal conversations, we would keep them personal. But let me just absolutely say how much I appreciate him and value his friendship.
Well, thank you for tackling that question and diving into it. I realize that you have to go. We learned a lot today. Are you going to be at Daytona? I'm a Miami guy. I don't know if you know that. So
good. No, I didn't know that. Yeah, no, I'm glad you're going to be able to go. I will actually be in Indianapolis. I'm chairing the football selection committee for the NCAA championship. And so we actually finish up on that Sunday in Indianapolis. But then my plan is probably to fly to Tampa or Fort Myers to go to the Florida Gulf Coast game on Tuesday. So that's my hope.
Oh, great. I'm a little disappointed, but I'm going to make it over to Rhode Island and definitely stop by and say hi. You'll probably be in the Ryan Center before the game like you were last time. And
anytime. It would be great to see you.
Yeah. And also, I don't want you running down the quad to get to your next meeting. I did enough of that when I was a student, being late for campus. So once again, thank you, Thorr. And you never disappoint. This was a phenomenal interview. It was fun too. We had some laughs, and that's what this is all about, the show. So thank you so much
for having me on. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for including me. It's greatly appreciated, and really enjoyed this time together. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. And we'll just stay in touch. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go Rhodey.